Well, let's discuss preparation. Preparation is so important if you're going to make a good, consistent swing. If you're going to build a solid house, you have to have a solid foundation, and so it is with the golf swing. I see most people's problems happen at address. In other words, if we can get them set up to the ball correctly, it allows them to make a good swing. If you have a poor address position, which consists of your grip, your posture, your alignment, and your ball position, if those things are out, you're very unlikely to make a good swing. And the reason is that the swing consists of balance. Remember, we're facing a stationary ball. We have to make the movement really from a very stationary position at address. Now, if we're out of balance, we're out of position, we're going to have to make compensations. And the more compensations you make, the more inconsistent you're going to be. Just as simple as that. Now, what does a preparation consist of? Well, there's really 4 key areas. One is your grip, how you position your hands on the club. Because remember, your hands really control ultimately where the club face is when you make contact with the ball. So if we have a poor grip, it doesn't allow us to A, get the club face square, but B, it also doesn't allow the power to work itself through the arms and hands down into the club head. So we've got to get our hands positioned properly on the club. That's all important. The second thing we've got to do, we've got to get our posture right. The way we angle our body really determines how the body moves during the swing. You know, we've got a big arc to swing the club through. And also, we've got to create a lot of power. Now, if our body's out of position or out of balance, it's very tough to make this repetitive swing. We've got to coil, we've got to wind. In actual fact, these angles that we create for ourselves at address are ones that we have to try to maintain all through the swing, certainly up to impact. If our angles are changing, the club is moving out of position. If the club moves out of position, we've now got to compensate once again. So we're trying to eliminate compensations. The third aspect really to preparation is really talking about alignment, the way we aim. First of all, the club face, getting the club aimed at our target, and secondly, our body. That consists of our toe line, knee line, hip line, shoulder line, and also eye line. Getting these all parallel to our target line is absolutely vital if we're going to hit the ball to our target. Once again, if I'm aiming incorrectly, I've got to make compensations in order to get that club face square at impact. And everything we're doing is to get the club face square at impact, traveling at maximum speed down our target line. Now, the final aspect of preparation really is the ball position. Where we position the ball in our stance. If we position it back on one swing and then forward on another, obviously we're not going to hit the ball consistently. And you're going to see consistency is what we're looking for. Consistency is what everybody's looking for. If we're going to hit an iron in a consistent manner, we have to put it in such a position that, hey, we hit down on the ball. We're squeezing the ball off the turf. If we're going to hit a driver consistently, we've got to put the ball forward in our stance where we can actually sweep the ball off the tee. So all these elements are so important to make a good swing. If we can get this aspect right where we have control over it, remember, we don't have control over the rest of our swing because it's in actual fact in motion, but we have control over our address position. And if we can get set up to the ball correctly, prepare ourselves to hit the ball, we've got a good chance of making that consistent, repeating swing. Ben Hogan once made the statement that good golf begins with a good grip, and I'm a firm believer of that. The way you position your hands on the club determines the way the club head comes back to the ball. So many golfers have poor grips that they have poor fundamentals in their swing as a result. So very important to get your hands positioned correctly on the club. What I see generally with most golfers is they grip the club way too much up in the palm. As a consequence, they grip it very tight, their tension is wrong, they create a lot of tension up through the arms and the shoulders, and it doesn't allow them to swing the club smoothly. Furthermore, if you have the club up in the palm, as many golfers do, I would say probably around the world, maybe 75 to 80% of golfers have this problem, it doesn't allow them to really use their wrist correctly in the swing. If you want to get good wrist action where you can then transfer the power from your body through your arms and wrists into the club, well, you've got to position your hands correctly. Remember, your hands control where the club face is when you make contact with the ball. So what we see generally with so many golfers, we see what we term a palmy grip, also a very weak grip. In other words, that means the hands are too far round to the left on the club. For those of you that are right-handed, you can picture that. The hands around here in this fashion here, we work them around in a sort of a counterclockwise fashion, and that would be termed a weak grip. If we work the hands around this way in a clockwise fashion to an exaggerated extent, that's termed a strong grip. What we're trying to get for most players is what we term a neutral grip. Okay, getting a neutral position allows the club face to come back squarely to the ball. Now, there are basically three types of grips. The conventional grip is called the Varden grip or the overlap grip, whereby the little finger of the right hand, for right-handers, fits just on top of the knuckle, the index finger of the left hand. That joins those two together. There's the interlocking grip, where the little finger joins in with the index finger to keep the hands working as a unit. And then finally, for some players, a weaker player, a player with not much strength or flexibility, we even suggest what they term the baseball or the double-handed grip. The most important thing is that the hands work together as a unit and are parallel on the club with one another. We don't want one hand here and one hand here, or vice versa, one hand here and one hand here. We want to try to get the hands matching. It's a parallel situation we're trying to create, where the left hand, where we see a couple of knuckles on the left hand, the right hand, they sort of match one another, and I'm now in a position where I feel I'm in a nice relaxed position to be able to swing the club. So we've got to get the hands positioned correctly on the club to allow the club head to get squarely back to the ball on contact. One of the things that we have control over in the swing is our address position. In other words, that consists of the grip, the posture, the ball position, and the alignment. And one of the most important features of that address position is the posture. The way we position our body at address really, to a large extent, determines how we swing the club, because, you know, a good golf swing consists of good balance. And when we're swinging the club at a great speed, it's important that we have good balance. So if we're not in good balance at address, we're not likely to be in good balance when we swing the club. So we've really got to set ourselves in a position where we have our feet firmly planted on the ground, a little bit of knee flex, a little angle from the hips. I want to see my back fairly straight here and my neck relax. So I'm in a position where I'm in a very what I would term athletic position at address. And this allows me then to sort of turn, and hopefully the angles that I've created at address, I maintain those angles through the swing. If I lose my angles, very difficult to be consistent. So consistency is the theme, no question, for most golfers, or in fact for every golfer. So we've got to get consistent at address. We've got to get this balance such that, hey, the weight is on the balls of the feet, not too much on the heels, not too much on the toes. We want to be comfortable. Certainly, everybody's build is a little different. I'm tall, I have to get down to the ball a little bit more. Shorter people, they don't have to have quite as much flex as I do. But really, we've got to get the body in a good position at address. And not only that, not only the body, but we also have to have the arms relaxed, because if you're too tense here, it's very difficult, once again, to make a smooth swing. So relaxing is important. The arms have to be in a nice relaxed position when we address the ball. And our hands pretty much have to hang just somewhere just under the chin. Now it varies a little bit depending on the club that we're using, but in effect, the longer the club, the more we tend to stand a little bit more erect. The shorter the club, like a wedge or a 9-iron, we're going to be a little bit more over it. But you don't really have to think about that. The whole idea is that you get in good balance, you're in a position from where you can move, and that'll allow you to make a good turn back and a good turn through. You know, if I'm going to aim a rifle at a target, okay, and I'm aiming right at the camera here, and I'm aiming over there, not likely to hit my target, am I? Well, the important thing, if you want to hit your target, you've got to aim, silly. So it's not that easy to aim in golf. The problem is we're standing to the side of the ball. When we stand to the side of the ball, we've got the club face, and we've also got our body. If I had a rifle, I've got the rifle and my body almost on the same line, and I'm looking right at it. But it certainly is a more difficult task when I'm standing to the side. So the first key really is we've got to get this club face square to our target. The most important thing is aiming the club face where we want to go. If we can aim the club face where we want to go, in other words, we get this at 90 degrees at right angles to our target, that goes towards the target. Our body then goes parallel left of it. So in other words, I've got the one line out here, which is my target line, where the club face is aimed. I've got the other line across my toes, one across my knees, one across my hips, shoulders, and even my eyes. These lines have to be parallel to that target line. The error that we see with so many golfers is that they put their feet down and try to aim their feet at the target. As a consequence, they seem to have the feet in one direction, the hips and the shoulders in another. And to be consistent, you really do have to get yourself lined up and aimed. That's one element that we have control over. It takes a little bit of work, and sometimes it feels a little bit strange. Sometimes it may be an optical illusion. We're aiming in one direction and hitting to another, but yet it is so important to get yourself aimed. You find that the top players in the world, that's something they're constantly working on, to make sure that their club face and their body are aimed in the right direction. So the club face has to be aimed first. We then put our feet down, knees, hips, shoulders, everything then parallel to that target line. And I say, if we can get that feeling of a railway track, then we're in business. So remember, club face first, body second, and the body in actual fact for a right-handed golfer is actually aimed to the left of my target. So I'm actually aiming at the tree down in the distance. So my club face is aimed at 90 degrees to it. And then I've got my body in a position which matches that. If I can do that, that's one of the ways that we can be very, very consistent and build a repeating swing. Okay, I'm going to show you the greatest trick shot in golf, how to hit 3 balls with 3 clubs at the same time. Only kidding. This is to show you ball position, because ball position, once again, really is something that we have to establish and do consistently. There are different thoughts on ball position, but generally speaking, with the driver, you want the ball forward in your stance towards your left heel. We want the middle to long irons a little further back, as I'm describing here with the second club. And the short irons are pretty much going to be in the middle of my stance. Now the reason for this is the following. With the driver, we're trying to hit the ball on the upswing. Consequently, you put the ball forward in your stance. With the short irons, you're really trying to hit the ball on the downswing and squeeze that ball off the turf, taking a nice solid divot. The longer and middle irons, we want somewhere in between. Not too sweepy, not too steep. So generally, if you've got 3 ball positions, that is one way that you can find you can create consistency. Now, another thing that I generally see, people who slice the ball have the ball too far forward, almost trying to allow for that slice. People who hook the ball, generally better players, they have the ball too far back in their stance. Because they're coming so far from the inside, that's the best position to attack the ball from. So to get consistent, you really want to have a situation like this where maybe you put a ball just inside your heel for a driver and try to get the ball you're trying to hit right opposite it. And it allows you then to get the feeling that, hey, you've now got to a position where you can hit the ball in the correct position. I would say, generally speaking, good players should have the ball further forward in their stance. High handicap golfers want to have the ball further back. No matter what, though, you need to do it consistently. So hopefully this shows you where the ball should be positioned for these 3 types of clubs. Hello there, I'm David Ledbetter, and it's a real pleasure for me to bring to you Ledbetter Interactive. I'm really excited about this new innovative product because I know it's going to help thousands of golfers play some really great golf. It has always given me a great deal of personal satisfaction seeing a student improve, no matter whether they're a beginner just trying to get the ball into the air for the first time, or a tour player fine-tuning their game for the major championships. My aim, and that of my instructors who work for me at the academies around the world, are to help players really understand the golf swing, and more importantly, their own golf swing. If we can give them a blueprint for success and have them understand how the swing really works and what they have to do, the subtleties of the swing, the drills, the little exercises, they're going to see some unbelievable improvement. I found that helping students understand the principle of cause and effect is really the key to understanding the working of the golf swing. And Ledbetter Interactive will help you to do this. Using video analysis allows me to illustrate to students the most subtle of faults. And Ledbetter Interactive incorporates the same video technology that I use with every student. no matter whether they're starting the game, whether they've been playing for just a few years, or the top players in the world. Now you can view your own golf swing and accurately identify the flaws as you are guided step by step through the analysis process. It's simple, it's easy, and it's a lot of fun. In this first volume of Ledbetter Interactive, we'll work on the basic mechanics of the golf swing and really give you an insight into how it works. Are you ready? I am. Come on, let's get started. Ledbetter Interactive is my exciting new instruction platform featuring advanced technology and unparalleled interactivity to bring you the same instruction methodology used at all of my academies around the world. One of the features that makes Ledbetter Interactive unique is the integration of video analysis technology. Video analysis is used extensively at my academies around the world to provide students with visual feedback and accelerate the learning process. Now you, in the comfort of your own home or office, can enjoy the same benefits of video analysis experienced by golfers visiting my academies. Ledbetter Interactive allows you to view your own golf swing and accurately identify the flaws as I guide you step by step through the analysis process. Corrective drills are then provided and tailored to address your specific faults. There is no guesswork involved. Many of my tour players use this technology and regularly send me their swings when they are on the road to stay in touch between visits to the academy. The power of the internet means they can be half a world away and still receive the same personal attention as they get here from me at Champions Gate. Now you can receive the same benefits. With Ledbetter Interactive, golfers anywhere in the world can now experience a personal video lesson from us here at Champions Gate in Orlando, Florida. Simply use Ledbetter Interactive to upload your golf swing to our online academy, where one of my qualified instructors will conduct a personal analysis and provide specific game improvement drills. You can view your personal video lessons anytime, anywhere over the internet. This interactive feature enables us to work closely with you and provide ongoing instruction specific to the individual needs of your golf game. It's like having a one-on-one golf lesson here at Champions Gate in Orlando, Florida. It's honestly the next best thing to being right here on the practice tee working on your game at Champions Gate. As golfers, all of our goals may be different. Whether attempting to break 100 for the first time and just enjoy the game, or trying to make a living out on the tour. My hope is through this interactive coaching system, I can assist you with the motivation and know-how to allow you to reach your goals and play some great golf. There's a couple of important points to remember when videoing your own swing. The first thing, turn it on and take the lens cap off. That's really key. But being serious though, make sure that you set the camera at about waist height. Waist height's important because then we get the whole picture of the body. The second thing is to make sure that you've got on a high speed mode, sports mode, or at least a minimum of 1,000 frames per second. This allows us to see the club head clearly and all parts of the swing. There'll be no blur. So remember, a minimum of 1,000 or sports mode, then you've got it. The first angle to look at when you're filming is what we call the face-on angle, where the camera is exactly opposite one. Okay, it's at 90 degrees to me, to my target line, we can see here, and very important to get it absolutely at right angles in the center of my body. We also want the camera about 5 paces away from me, so if we can measure 5 paces, that will allow me then to see the whole swing. It'll allow me to see the whole club head. If we get it closer than 15 feet, the problem is the club head tends to go out of vision. So make sure 15 feet away, get it at right angles, make sure the camera is aimed at my midriff, and then we're in good shape. The down the line view is a very important angle to look at when we're viewing our golf swing. It shows us our posture, the way our body is positioned, and it also importantly shows us our swing plane, the angle that the club is swung on to the top and back down to the ball. So make sure that the camera is angled in such a way that it's pointing at my midriff, right here. We want it 15 feet away once again, 5 paces. That will allow us to actually see the whole swing. The club head will not go out of view. And the most important thing is to make sure that the camera is positioned in such a way that it's right opposite the midpoint between the ball and my feet. That's where you want to actually have the camera position. You don't want it on the toes, you don't want it on the ball line. You want it right in the middle. This allows us to see the exact track that the hands follow. So remember, get it at a midway point between my feet and the ball. If I can do that, I'll be able to see my swing very, very clearly. The golf swing. How does it work? What does it consist of? How do we develop it? How do we maintain it? So many questions, and questions that have been asked for many, many years. The golf swing is really very complex in a lot of ways, but when done well, very simple. I'd like to tell you about what constitutes a good golf swing. Then you'll see how it works and really how it's going to affect your golf game. In actual fact, there's quite a few components involved in the golf swing, and I'm going to talk to you about them now because I think if you understand what the components are, it will really help you to have a clear vision of where you are now and where you're trying to get to. The golf swing really, in many ways, is very athletic. Physics are involved, but it's also an art form. If you watch the great players in the world, they have this great flow, they have this great rhythm. Some may be a little quicker than others, some may be a little slower. We're all built differently. No two swings look exactly the same. We're not trying to create a perfect model. We're trying to have some fundamentals which repeat, and that's the key. Because in essence, what are we trying to do? We're trying to get the club face square at impact, traveling down the target line at maximum speed. Now, if we can do that, I know it sounds simple, but if we can achieve that, then we're going to play some really good golf and have a lot of fun. You know, there's nothing greater than hitting solid golf shots. When the ball comes off the middle of the club face, whether it be with an iron, a tee shot, or even a putt, there's no more a satisfying feeling than that. And that's what golf's all about. Yes, we have to learn to score, no question. The short game plays a vital role in this game. Thinking about the game plays a vital role. But the fun for most people is striking the ball solidly, hitting those long straight tee shots, eliminating those bad shots, learning to hit the ball consistently, and then finally learning to score and then saying, hey, to your friends, this is what I've achieved. You know, we have handicaps in golf. We can see our improvement, and that's the great thing about it. So let's get started. Let's talk about the golf swing. I think it really consists of what I call the 4 Ps, and that's preparation, how we go about setting up to a golf ball. In other words, the platform, the foundation of a swing, which consists of the way you hold the club, the way you position your body, the way you aim yourself, and also where you position the ball relative to your stance. So that preparation is all important. If we're going to have a good swing, we've got to have a good foundation. Now we move into the moving parts of the swing, how the body actually works in the swing. When we swing back, the body turns. There's a winding, there's a coiling. We're trying to create leverage in the golf swing, whereby we can hit the ball with effortless power. We don't want to stand there and trying to flail at the ball. As soon as we try to hit the golf ball, that's when things start to go wrong. When you're playing well, you find it's really effortless. There's really not much energy applied. In fact, there is a lot of energy applied, but it doesn't feel that way. So what we learn to do is use the body in such a way that we wind up. As in other sports, whether in tennis, whether you're serving, whether you're hitting a baseball, whether you're throwing a ball, you use the body to create the power, stretching those big muscles. It allows you to wind up, coil like a spring, stretch, wind up, unwind. That winding and unwinding really is what creates the power. So learning how the body moves, weight shift, turn, coil, is all important in developing a good golf swing. The third aspect to it is the positioning in the swing. In other words, what the club is actually doing in the swing. The path, the track that it swings on, the plane that it swings on, the ability to get the club moving up and down on a simple track whereby we can create a repeating swing. We need to understand what the club face is doing. We need to understand what the hands are doing. We need to understand how the power is generated from the body and passes through the arms and hands into the club. We talk about the certain positions in the swing which are really important, and certainly to start the swing, how we get the club actually moving on track, and then hopefully that club staying on track throughout the whole swing. Once we've understood certain positions in the swing, and there's not that many, but there are a few crucial positions we have to make clear. Once we've got that picture and we combine the movement of the club with the movement of the body, that's really what the golf swing is all about. The final P really is putting it all together. How you blend the swing together, how you do it with rhythm, with flow, with tempo, with good balance, good timing, allowing yourself to repeat a swing on a regular basis. If you can learn to develop that swing on a regular basis, when you go out and play, you're going to play consistent golf. And this is what everybody's looking for, consistency. We can all go out and play well one day, but the next day we seem to lose it. And that's the nature of the game. But within reason, if you understand your swing, put a little practice in, check it periodically with this David Ledbetter interactive video, you're going to see how this will really take place. You're going to develop a golf game which will allow you to play your best golf and to reach your full potential. In fact, you're going to have a lot of fun. Golf is very rewarding when you work on the right things. So let's get started. Body motion. How does the body, the full torso, actually work in the swing? Well, if you look at the swing itself, we're standing with our feet, say, somewhere in the region of shoulder width apart, or maybe slightly narrow or wider, depending on the club we're using. But very important, once we've got good posture, is to learn to move the body in such a way that we create motion. We see so many players who stay dead still in an effort to try to hit the ball straight. Well, you need motion to hit a ball. Your body has to move. Any sport that you play, whether you throw a ball, kick a ball, serve a tennis ball, no matter what it is, you have to learn to use the big muscles in the swing correctly, the big muscles of the upper body and the lower body, supported by the feet. Remember, balance is important. We have to move with balance. Even though we move a lot, we don't want to move out of balance. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult to get the club back to square when we make contact with the ball. So, in setting up to the ball, if I took this center point here, as I swing back, there is a little bit of a lateral movement. It's what I term a lateral rotation. There's a little bit of lateral, there's a lot of rotation. As we swing in the opposite direction, there's a little bit of lateral and there's a lot of rotation. So we don't just stay around a fixed point. If we stay around a fixed point, it's very difficult to get the angle correctly onto the ball. In other words, if I stay dead still, the club goes up and down. Remember, the club has to swing in a fairly wide arc as it swings around the body. So the body has to move. So I like to think in terms of the body moving in such a way that, hey, as I swing back, I try to get my shirt buttons on top of my right leg. As I swing through, ultimately, At the finish, my shirt buttons are on top of my left leg, so we don't have to keep the head dead still. We don't want to encourage extra movement, certainly, but really the rotation of the body, if I just lay this club down, put the hands behind my body, just to describe to you how the body moves. There's a little shift. I turn back. I get my back facing the target. I pretty much turn my upper body twice the amount of my lower body in that general area. As I swing back, I brace myself, so there's no wasted motion. We keep a lot of fixation in this right leg, so the weight does not go to the outside of the foot. I then, as I swing through, my weight starts to shift back to the left side. The body then starts to turn through towards the target. So when I finish, I'm now in a nice balanced position, up on my right toe, facing the target in a complete finish. So once again, we move, we turn. We move, we turn. And we do this with a degree of rhythm and fluidity, smoothness. So it's a movement that we create speed. The way our body moves, the way we wind up, the way we coil. Turning my upper body twice the amount of my lower body creates a coiling action which allows me then to unwind, very much like a spring. We coil it going back, we uncoil it going through. So there's a degree of flow, there's a lot of motion, but once again, we have to think in terms of moving in such a way that it allows the club to swing. Remember, the dog wags the tail. We have to get our body moving if we want the club to move. Good golf swing is all about flow, all about movement. We stay dead still, and remember, so many thoughts these days are based around, hey, keep your head still, watch the ball, stay down on it. The problem when you do that is that you stay here and you don't have any motion. You look stiff, you look tight. So one of the keys really is to flow and to move. Now, we need some stability, certainly, but very important to understand that thinking in terms of when I address the ball, if this is my center, say my sternum, think of a line going down inside your right leg, and think of a line going down inside your left leg. So what we're trying to do here is to actually swing back and turn around this line on the backswing, and then as we swing through, we turn around this line on the follow through. So it's very important to understand that we don't stay dead centered. There has to be a weight shift in the swing. So when I swing back, I load up on this right leg, I swing through, and I move back to the left side. We see so many golfers that try to stay dead still. As a result, they get all these problems like reverse pivots and what have you. There's too many to mention. But the fact remains is that if I put the club behind my back like this and just turn around and look at somebody like this, okay, as I do this, you can see how I've moved. I'm turning around, my weight's on my right side, consequently I swing through. As I look back in this direction, my weight is now on my left side. So remember, it's just like you're turning around to look at somebody. When you turn around and look at somebody, my shirt buttons are now on top of my right leg, and that's important. You don't want to have your shirt buttons moving this way. So when you swing the club, the feeling is that you get behind the ball. You hear about that, getting behind it. Well, as long as you keep a little flex in that right knee, you won't sway. A lot of people are really afraid of swaying. So remember, get back into that right side, swing through to the left side. And that's all there is to it. Now, as I've said, there are two main components in the swing: the turning of the body and the swinging of the club. The swinging of the club consists of the way the club moves, certainly, but the way the hands, the wrists, and the arms move. For the most part, the way that the hands and arms move really determines the direction of the shot. The power comes from the body, certainly. It comes through the arms and hands into the club. But we have to learn, if we're going to hit the golf ball straight, we've got to get the hands and arms and club swinging on a consistent track. So what does it consist of? Well, certainly we have to have a good grip, which we'll talk about. But once we've got a good grip, our hands positioned on the club correctly, we have to understand that the club swings in a way that everything moves away together. There's no independent movement. We're swinging in a circular fashion. The club swings away together. There's a hinging action with the wrist, so as the wrists hinge, the club is gradually opening. Okay, the club gradually opens as we swing back. There's a folding motion of the right arm as I swing back here. The wrists get cocked. we swing the club on a plane which pretty much is identical to the angle that we had at address. We're not swinging it around here or swinging it up here. We're trying to swing it on this natural plane here. The wrist cock, the club in position at the top there where my right elbow is under the shaft. The club is pretty much pointed down towards my target. And we're in a position as I swing down now that the arms fall on a very similar track to the one they made on the backswing. So as we swing through here now, as the arms swing, the club now is squaring itself off. So as it gradually opens on the backswing, so it gradually closes on the downswing. So the club face is dead square when we make contact. The arms extend through in a similar mirror image fashion to the way they swung back. They swing through. We can see this triangle. Look at this triangle that I've got swinging here. The arms, the chest, we can see as I swing back and through, very much a carbon copy of what's going back is coming through. As I follow through here, once again, this movement through here is identical to this movement back here. So as my wrists hinge and cock on the backswing, as they swing through and they uncock through impact, they recock as I swing through. So understanding how the club swings and the track that they swing on, remember, there's a path the club swings on, and there's also a plane, the angle that the club swings on. So the club comes inside the target line, back through to the finish. So we can say it swings inside, down inside to square, inside through to the finish. The plane, very much identical to the angle of the club at address. We don't want to go too far up in an upright fashion. We don't want to swing too far around in a flat fashion. We swing the club back in such a way that the club very much mirrors the angle it was at address. And if we can understand that, combined with the wrist action of the swing, you're going to find you're going to build a very repeating swing. So the golf swing really is thought of as the way the club swings. Certainly the body is vitally important, but the way the hands, the wrists, the arms, and the club move is really important for you to create a consistent golf swing. It's vitally important you have an image in your mind of the shape of the swing. In other words, the path and the track that the club follows, and also the track that your body follows. Now let's talk about the club first of all. You know what happens with most people? They over-control the golf club. They try to hit the ball. As a result of that, the club swings on a very unnatural orbit. Now, I think the difficult thing about golf is that we're actually standing to the side of the ball and swinging on a pitched angle. In other words, we're swinging on a plane which is fairly similar to the angle of the golf club that we have in our hands at address. Now, important to understand that, hey, if we were swinging a baseball bat or really almost a forehand in tennis, that the motion really happens on a very horizontal plane. So it's a circular motion, certainly, but the golf swing now is a circular motion down at a very different angle. Now, this is what confuses a lot of people. Do we take it straight back? Do we take it inside? Do we swing it up? What do we do with the club? Well, you know, instantly enough, if you let the club almost follow its own track, it'll find a correct orbit. Now, let me show you what I mean. I'm going to grip the club with 2 fingers and a thumb. As I swing this club back, you'll notice it swings inside what we term the target line. The target line simply is the line down towards our target, through the ball, right, extending right down towards the target. Now, the club swings slightly inside that line. It swings around, certainly, but also it has to swing up, obviously. Now, you can see just with 2 fingers and a thumb, I'm not trying to control it. I'm just letting it swing. Back she goes. It'll swing in, around, up, to a point where, hey, at the top of the backswing, as it's termed, it's pretty much parallel to my target line. Then, consequently, as the club falls down, with gravity affecting the issue, the club swings down on a very similar track coming down. This rounded track, you see it's very much a circular rounded track, through to the ball, and then subsequently following a very similar arc through into this direction. So really what happens this side of the ball is pretty much a mirror image of what happens that side of the ball. So we can see in, around, up, online, down she comes, around and through to the other side. Now if I just grip the club with 2 fingers and a thumb, you'll notice how this pretty much follows that track. So I'm not trying to over control it. I'm not going to hit very far, obviously, gripping it this way, but it will show you how the club actually swings. You know, one of the key issues in any good golf swing is rhythm and flow. How the club actually swings without over controlling it. You know, the club really doesn't weigh that much. Very much as I term it, it's like the dog wagging the tail, okay? The body moves, the tail swings. Or an elephant with his trunk. As his head moves, so the trunk moves. So trying to combine the movement of the body and the swinging of the club is all important. So let me just clip one away with 2 fingers and a thumb. I'm just going to simply make the swing and let the ball get in the way in a very gingerly fashion, and let's see what happens. Very simple, very easy. The ball just simply got in the way. I didn't try to hit the ball. I tried to make a swing and let the ball get in the way. Now, my body motion. Well, my body motion now has to turn in a little bit of a circular fashion. If I put the club across my shoulders like so, as I turn, you can see, yes, there's a little bit of a shift. There's a little bit of what we term lateral movement, but basically, I'm turning to the right as if I was looking at somebody behind me. You can see the circular motion that I have here. As I swing through here, I shift back to the left and I turn back onto my left side and turn around and look at somebody behind me in this fashion. So we can see it's a circular motion with the body. At the same time, it's a circular motion with the club, but the club has to swing on this angle. It's what we term the plane of the swing. And if I can really help to describe the plane of the swing to players, it really helps them to understand how they get the club face square to the ball when they make contact, because that's what we're trying to achieve here. We're trying to achieve a situation where, hey, the club comes to the ball, is square when it makes contact, the ball leaves on target, the club's accelerating at that point, and hey, we hit long, straight golf shots. I've always felt in golf that the difficult thing for golfers to understand is the shape and the path of the swing. We like to describe it as a big wheel. Now, if we talk in terms of a baseball motion, a batter's motion, yes, it's very much on a horizontal, flat plane. Very easy to picture this circle, this wheel, on this plane. Conversely, if we look at croquet or even putting, it's very much a vertical plane, almost a pendulum-like action, straight back and through to a large extent. But now, in the full swing, we've got to look at the shape of the swing being very much on the angle that we address the ball at. You see, look at the angle of this shaft here. So as I swing back, this wheel has to move on this track. And that's a very difficult thing to conjure up in one's mind, especially when we're thinking in terms of coming from the inside, not trying to hit the ball with the club swing on a straight line. You see, the club is only on a straight line for maybe this distance. The rest of it is actually moving around. It moves up, it moves down, it then moves around again. So here's a little exercise to actually help you to feel this. All you've got to do is to actually swing in a baseball type fashion. So swing it here, do this a couple of times, and then gradually just lower it. Bring it down to here now. Feel the shape of the swing. You can see it's moving on a slightly different plane here now. A little lower still. Until we finally get to the ball, and then we have this sense of that same movement. As long as you get the shape of the swing being more of a rounded wheel shape, but yet on this line, then you've got the correct picture in your mind. So now when you're on the practice tee, make a swing in a baseball fashion like this. And then get down with a similar feel and hit the golf ball. Now, if you can learn to take the baseball plane and put it on a golf plane, you got it. The one ingredient that great players have when they're really swinging well and hitting the ball solidly is rhythm. Some players are very fortunate in that they have a very natural rhythm. where they're able to reproduce that rhythm week in and week out. Consequently, they play consistently. A lot of us have to work on rhythm, but really the rhythm is the thing that glues the swing together. It gets everything flowing. It gets the turning body and the swinging club really blending together correctly. So rhythm does not necessarily mean tempo. Let me describe the difference between the two, because rhythm is just how the swing flows from start to finish. Tempo is really the speed of your swing from the time that you address the ball to the time that you hit it. Some players naturally have a quicker tempo, some players have a slower tempo. A lot of that really depends on one's personality. If you're slow moving, slow thinking, easy going, you'll have probably a much slower tempo. If you're a quick, dynamic person, do things in a hurry, you'll have a much quicker tempo. So that's not really a problem. It really is a case of flowing the swing, where you start smoothly, you start down smoothly, and then you accelerate the club through the finish. Now, rhythm, on the other hand, is really a case of making sure the swing flows from start to finish. How all the bits, all the links are joined together from start to finish. Even if your tempo is a little on the quick side, or even if you've got a nice, slow, smooth tempo, we have to realize that, hey, we've got to get the club flowing. It doesn't want to overly accelerate away from the ball. It doesn't want to overly accelerate from the top of the backswing. We want to make sure it's a smooth build-up so we can accelerate the club right through impact where it counts. If we can get that flow and that rhythm, we're going to find we're going to be consistent. When you're playing well, you sense that rhythm. The swing feels easy. The ball comes off the club face with no effort. When you're playing poorly, the club feels heavy. There's a lot of effort. So rhythm really is the ingredient that glues that swing together. Let's show you. We're going to work on that rhythm. We're going to get you to have a repeating, simple golf swing. One of the common denominators that all great players have in their golf swings is rhythm and flow. Now, some players might swing the club a little quicker, like a Nick Price compared to an Ernie Els. But even so, the flow, the rhythm is there. The problem with golf, the ball being stationary, is that we tend to get tight and stiff over the ball and snatch the club away. So important to get off to a good start, to flow the club away. You know, the swing's like a chain reaction. You get the early part of the chain right, the rest of the swing's going to be just fine. Now, here's a great little drill to help you to get flowing the club away from the ball. What you want to do is just tee it up, maybe get a 7 or an 8 iron, and from here, start the club forward, maybe a couple of feet, and then from here, just allow the club to swing back with a little turn of your body. So we start forward, we then flow it away. It's pretty much like in tennis, a player who would go forward and then go back, rather than just standing dead still. So remember, you want to start a couple of feet ahead of it, let your belly button turn with the club, and really get the club flowing. And you'll feel that sense of rhythm, that sense of tempo, that sense of timing. So let's have a go. So you take your normal setup, nice and relaxed. Start forward a couple of feet, just inside the target line, so not out here, just inside the target line. Look at the target once, look back at the ball, then go ahead. So that's what you have to do in order to get your flow. You get that flow right, golf's going to be a lot easier. When you look at all the top players in the world, men and women, what commonalities do they have? They're all built differently, they all swing differently, yet their timing is exquisite. They get the club to the ball almost the same way each time. As a result, they hit the ball consistently. Now, it's all about synchronization. Now, synchronization means learning to move your body and swing the club and harmonize the two together. That's the key. The problem with many players, they work on a turn or they work on a swing, and they never really get the two working together. So here's a little exercise that can really help you to synchronize your body turn with that of the swinging club. Swinging club obviously includes the hand and the arms. So all we want to do here is I want you to get your hand and put it opposite your chest, just like so. You then hold the club with your right hand. This is for right-handed golfers, obviously. For you left-handers, you just use your left hand. Right, so now what we're going to do, we're going to get the body turning and we're going to get the club swinging. So you can see pretty much as I complete the backswing, you can see exactly where I am here. The turn and the club pretty much arrive together. And that's so important to get the turn and the swing arriving together, because then as we swing through, they must come together as well. So here we go. As we turn the body through, the club swings. So as a result, the turning of my body and the swing of the club really match. So as I complete my backswing with my turn, so I complete the backswing with the swing. As I swing through, everything's moving in harmony. I pretty much finish together. The body finishes, the club finishes. We see so many golfers, the body turns, the arms swing, the body then turns. Synchronization is the key for consistency. If you can learn to do that, you'll find the strike will be more consistent, and you'll feel that, hey, when you go out and play, it's not as if, now what happened on that last swing? Why did I do it so well? You'll know synchronization is the key. So we're going to learn to turn the body and swing the club in harmony. Try it, you'll like it. We see a number of problems with people's grips. We see players that grip the club too strong, where both hands are round to the right. We see players who grip what they term too weak, where the hands are too far round to the left. We see players particularly who have the club too much up in the palm. If you wear a whole lot in your glove, certainly that's your problem. We also see on occasions players have it too much in the fingers. They're in the minority, but we do see them. We also see players, they might have one hand too far around this way and one hand too far around that way. In other words, the hands do not sit parallel on the club. We also see players who have excessive grip tension, where they're gripping the club, strangling the club like it's a snake they're trying to strangle, where instead of having the hands in a nice relaxed position where they just have control of the club. So these faults create problems at address and create problems as far as getting the club back consistently to the ball. Good players make it look like as if their hands are molded to the club. It just looks so perfect, which allows them then to have a repeating swing and build confidence in the way they strike the ball. So let me share with you a way that I feel you can get your hands molded to the club. You know, most golfers, when they grip the club, they have the club on the ground, they put their hands on, and the club really settles in a very poor position, generally speaking up in the palm. Now, you can see with this glove that we've designed, called the Leadbetter glove, we just were so tired of drawing lines on people's gloves with a felt tip pen that we decided we'd bring out a glove which was already pre-marked so people could get the club positioned correctly every time. So the key being, for most people, when they have it down here, it slips up in the palm. A lot of times it'll create a lot of tension, won't allow the wrist to cock. Remember, a good grip allows your wrist action to work in such a way that you create leverage right here. You get the leverage in order to be able to pop that ball or crack the whip as it's termed. If you want to crack the whip, you've got to have a good grip. You've got to put your hands correctly on the club, especially for you right-handers, the left-hand grip. So the thing I suggest you do is get into the habit of getting the club off the ground at 45 degrees and bringing your hand in from the target and placing it on in this manner here. Not putting it on the ground and taking your grip. So hold the club up with your right hand. Make sure the leading edge is at 12 o'clock, straight up and down. That means your club face is square. You bring your left hand from the target at 90 degrees. You place it just above the little finger, the little pinky finger, and make sure the club lays diagonally across the hand. So we can see it fits between the little finger and lies in the index finger through the index finger. And now I'm in a position where I could hold the club up in the air with balance with these last two fingers, getting it away totally from the palm. By doing that, I can actually feel the club swinging. I can feel the wrist cocking. I can feel the whip cracking. It puts me in a position where when I hold it up, I can see two knuckles on my left hand. I make sure in doing this that my thumb and index finger are close together here, very important. And then from here, I can actually attach my right hand, whether in an overlapping fashion where the little finger fits on top, interlocking, or baseball. I can get my right hand parallel to my left hand. But I'm looking at it from a bird's eye view here. I'm not looking at it down here. Much easier looking at it in front of me. So remember, hold up at 45, bring it from 90, be able to hold it in those last two little fingers. I see two knuckles on my left hand, a little angle at the base of my wrist. I then put my right hand on, whichever fashion I like to do so, and my hands work together as a unit. That's key. And I can certainly feel the club cocking, hinging, and my goodness, we're going to get a lot of power that way. So remember, get that grip right, hit a lot of long, straight golf shots. Now here's a drill to help you with your grip. I think for right-handed golfers, the left hand or the lead hand is certainly the most important hand to get correctly positioned on the club. Once you've got your left hand on, then you can just match your right hand to it. In order to get your left hand correctly positioned, here's a way to do it. For you left-handers, you'll be doing it with your right hand, obviously. Now, you just simply want to bend forward, just from the waist, let your arms just hang, and you'll notice that my hands point inward. Okay, you can see almost at, say, 45 degrees. The idea is to actually take hold of the club with your hand hanging at the 45-degree position. Most people grip it when the club is in front of them and then put their hand on. As a result, their left hand gets in a poor position. So, let your arm hang, take hold of it with your left hand, so, and you will see in doing that, if I bring the club forward now, that for the most part, I've got a little angle at the back of my left wrist, at the base of my left wrist. I can see a couple of knuckles on my left hand, and my right hand thumb is fairly straight down the shaft, maybe just a hair pointed to the right of center. I can feel in doing this that I've got a little pressure in my last couple of fingers, but basically it's the same angle as my arm is hanging, and that's very, very important. That's a much more natural position to get into. Then simply it's a matter of getting your right hand to match and blend to that right hand. Whether you grip it overlapping, interlocking, or baseball, the right hand actually wants to sit parallel to the left hand. So get your left hand right. It's going to make a big difference in the way that you grip the club. A good grip really means that your hands have to work together as a unit. So both hands have to match one another on the club. It's no good if you get one hand in one direction and one hand in another. It just really doesn't allow the hands to stay on the club consistently or get the club face back square to the ball at impact. Now here's a little way you can just simply check to see that your hands are parallel to one another in the right position on the club. Because remember, although the left hand's important for a right-handed golfer, the right hand is obviously just as important as long as you make sure they parallel one another. So in setting up to it, hold the club up in the air. Make sure with your left hand on the club that the line or the gap between your thumb and index finger right here, sense it points up towards your right eye. Point it at your right eye, nowhere else. Put your right hand on, bring the right hand on in such a way whether, no matter which way you grip it, overlapping, interlocking, or baseball, but the hand needs to sit parallel on the club So the line between the thumb and forefinger on this hand sits and positions itself in such a way that it looks toward your right shoulder. So this line points towards your right eye for a right-handed golfer. This line points towards your shoulder. And now, if I put my hands on the club in such a way that they're parallel to one another, I've got a good chance of one hand not overpowering the other. So, get those hands parallel, check where the thumb and forefinger of each hand are looking, and you're going to have a pretty sound golf grip. In my travels around the world coaching and teaching, I've seen many strange postures, so not quite sure what sport some of these people are playing, but it's very important to get your posture right. We see players that really bend way over the ball like this, their upper body's over in this position, their sort of weight is back on the heels, their legs are locked, and then conversely, we see the players who sort of sit back on the old bar stool, probably used to that habit, but they sit back here, knees flexed, chin up there, and really in a very bad position to actually hit the ball. So very important to get good balance at address. I'm going to give you a little drill to help you with your posture. I always describe it as an athletic position because really, golf really is an athletic sport, believe it or not. And a lot of players, because of the way they sit up to the ball, make a very non-athletic golf swing. So you really want to make sure that you're in great balance, you're ready, you're in a position where, very similar to somebody receiving serve in tennis or any sport where you need balance, it's very important to get yourself set at address. You've got to set yourself a good foundation, a good platform from where you can make a good swing. So it's a very simple little exercise. You get a club, probably about a middle iron, and you put it out in front of you and you lean down on it. Okay, you push it down to the ground and you want to feel that your stomach muscles, your abs, are actually helping you to do this. If I sit back too much, just my hands are going to be pushing on their own, my hands and arms. If I bend too far forward, same thing happens. But if I'm in good balance where the weight is distributed correctly through my feet, so I'm going to have about a 50-50 balance right foot, left foot for most shots, maybe a little bit more on the right with a driver, a little bit more on the left for a short arm, but generally 50-50. Lean forward here and feel like you engage your abs. You'll sense in doing this that it's not just purely hand pressure to push the club into the ground. In doing this, you can see I've got a little knee flex, I'm bending from my hips, I'm in a position where my neck is relaxed. We don't want to get the chin too far up, certainly not too tight to the chest, but just in a very relaxed position. And I feel in doing this that I feel the weight has moved away from my heels. So you want to make sure, so when you set up to it, you could almost raise those heels slightly off the ground. Now, all I'm going to do now is try to assume a similar position at address as I was holding the club in this fashion. And we can see a little bit of knee flex, feel like I can almost lift my heels off the ground and stay in good balance without toppling over. And now I'm ready to go. From here, I really feel I can make a good swing, good turn, and keep those all-important angles through to impact. When you look on video, or when you look in a mirror for that matter, you'll find a lot of times that your posture is not where you think it is. It's very difficult to feel one's posture, so you really do have to have a good look at it. That's why video is so important. You can then compare yourself to any great player, because all good players, I'll tell you what, have good posture. There's no question that's a common denominator with the top players. Now here's a simple exercise to make sure that your posture is in a pretty good position. Now, you know, it's all about balance, and what I want you to do, those of you who've done any sort of weightlifting at all, you'll know there's an exercise called deadlift where you bend forward and then actually raise yourself up. Well, we're not going to suggest you do that with a barbell, but I want you to take your club, get your feet set in a position where, well, maybe it'll be about just slightly narrower than a driver stance. But what I want you to do is hold the club in your fingers like so. Flex your knees, get right down, really sit down on your haunches. Okay, feel the flex in the knees. Feel the balance of the club here. Not your arms shouldn't be out here. Just let them rest just nicely on your knees. And then from here, very gently, very gradually raise yourself up, keeping the flex in the knees, and you'll sense that you have this all-important angle here at your hips, and that's really important. See, so many golfers who are out of position here or here. If you can learn to sort of create this spine angle, as it's termed, this will help you to create a very consistent turn back and through. So from this position here, by doing this little exercise now, it really gives me the feeling of a little knee flex, the flexion at my hips, my upper body slightly forward, and now I'm in a position from where I can hopefully make a very repetitive, consistent swing. So try that drill. Posture is a very important aspect in getting yourself ready to hit the ball. We often hear about talking in terms of too far over this way or too far back this way, but we don't often hear about the players that sort of tend to address the ball in such a way that what we call their side angle is incorrect. In other words, we see players who, when they set up to it, their right side is high, their left side is low. Normally we see poorer players or slicers do this, and it really is a problem area, because they say if you get into this position, you're totally off balance. Conversely, we see some better players who get their right side way too low and their left side way too high. So now they're tilted back behind the ball. So people who hook the ball a lot, this generally is the position they get into. So this is two areas that we really need to look at in the golf swing. If you have a problem where your right side is set too low, left shoulder too high, right arm overly tucked, generally speaking, you'll probably be a better player. Here's a little drill to help you to get out of that problem and to get into a more level position, to help you get more on top of the ball and to get the club traveling squarely down the target line. What I'd like you to do is to take your grip, but this time grip it cross-handed. In other words, put your left hand below your right. Don't want you to hit balls like this, but set up to it. Left hand below the right. See automatically what that does. It elevates the right shoulder, lowers the left shoulder, gets everything a lot squarer as opposed to this. And now we're in a position where if we swap the hands around and maintain that same feel that you had with a cross-handed grip, you should really be in the position where now you feel like you're leaning a little more to the left as opposed to the right, but it really will get you more on top of the ball through impact and help you to get the club moving squarely down the target line. If you have a problem addressing the ball with your right side too high, your left side too low, or your right arm sticks out above your left arm, and you probably slice the ball and lose a lot of power as well, here's an excellent way to actually help you to get set up to the ball correctly. When you set up to it this way, the club will be coming on a steep outside-in path, generally speaking. We've got to get the club coming on a shallower, more inside-out path. So this is what I'd like you to do. Stand up, put your hands level, drop your right side or your right arm. Make sure your right arm is a lot longer than your left arm. And then from here, put your right hand in a position where you feel that your right shoulder is a lot lower. Your right arm feels more tucked and your head feels more behind the ball. You'll actually sense that your eyes are looking to the right of the target. So once again, stand up, lower your right hand and right arm, get the right shoulder low, left shoulder high, then bring your hands forward in a position where your right side is a lot lower. Then adopt the same position with your right hand on the club, so, and now you've changed your address position dramatically, and this will allow you to attack the ball from the inside, creating more of a sweeping blow, more of a draw, more power, and a whole lot of benefits to your golf game. So work on that right arm low. This alignment is so important, especially higher handicappers who simply rely on their feet to get themselves aimed up. You know, the feet are least important of all your aiming components. Basically your feet, your knees, your hips, your shoulders, and then your eyes. But your feet, you could have your feet to the right, to the left, and still be okay. But very important for high handicap players or people who slice or pull to get your upper body square. We see so many times that so many players have their upper body aimed to the left. I always tell golfers, if you want to get your aim absolutely perfectly correct, tell people where you're aiming after you hit it. Then you never get it wrong. But seriously though, alignment is a very important aspect. It's something you can control as long as you're aware of where you are aiming. If you go to a professional tournament, you'll see many of the players will lie clubs down on the ground to help them with their alignment. Simply because it is a difficult game, a difficult sport to get yourself lined up correctly every time. Because many times where we think we're aiming and where we're actually aiming are two different things. Now here's a little system that can actually help you to get yourself positioned properly every time. Very simple, and something I suggest you do when you practice. That way you can eliminate the variable of poor alignment. There's no reason why you should be aligned poorly. It's just a matter of being disciplined enough to aim correctly every time. So what I want you to do is get behind the ball, lie a club down, pointing directly at the target. Okay, so I'm choosing a tree in the distance. Okay, important when you practice that you do pick out a target, not just hit anywhere. All right, so now I see that's at the target. I then line up one parallel to it, this side of the ball, making sure that this club here and that club there are pretty much parallel to one another. Pick up the club behind the ball, and now set myself up in such a way I'm trying to get the club face at 90 degrees or right angles to the target, and then I set myself up. So now I've got an idea that this club here is on a line parallel to the target line, and that's really what we're looking for. So remember, get this line between your feet and the ball. Make sure it's parallel left of your target. It's just like a railway line. This is one side of the track. This is the other side of the track. And then just sense that your toes, your knees, your hips, your shoulders, and your eyes are all parallel to this club on the ground. If you can get into this routine, I guarantee you you'll have a more disciplined practice session, and Certainly, you want to change your direction, your aiming point frequently, just so you don't get used to one direction. But practice like this. You're practicing then with a purpose, and if you can do that, your game will improve tremendously. Let me show you a little way to help you to get yourself aligned correctly at address. You set yourself down in a position where, hey, you hold it with the left hand only, and then position yourself. You see, by doing this with my left hand, I can now bring my right hand in, and my right side now sets down lower. So now I'm in a position where, hey, my shoulders are square. It'll feel like, if you're doing this correctly, that your left shoulder is more forward and it's aimed well to the right of the target. I bet you it isn't. It's just because you've been this way for so long. So remember, set up with the left hand first, bring your right hand from underneath in this fashion here. That gets your right side lower, that gets your right side trailing, as we term it, and you'll be in a much better position. Your upper body will be nice and square, I guarantee it. And you'll see you have every chance then of get the club coming from the inside as opposed to coming from the outside, as most players do. To hit the ball consistently, solidly, you've got to have the ball position in the right part of your stance. In other words, you've got to be in a position where it's fairly far forward for a driver where you're sweeping it, and further back for the irons where you're trying to hit down on the ball. What we see on a lot of occasions is many golfers who have the ball way too far forward in their stance. Their body is probably aimed to the left, their shoulders, upper body for the most part, but the ball is too far outside their front foot. Generally speaking, people who slice have this problem. On the other hand, we see players who have the ball too far back in their stance, and I'm using a driver here, remember, have the ball too far back in their stance, and this probably is a result of the player coming too far from the inside, and that really is, for him, is the ideal position to strike the ball. Now, it's really a compensation, but it's very important, in my way of thinking, that you have that ball positioned correctly and consistently every time, because get it positioned consistently, it helps you to develop a consistent swing. Here's a little drill to ascertain your ball position. So important to get the ball in the correct place. Now, I'm using a short iron here, and I'm trying to get the ball in the center of my stance. If I was using a driver, I'd want it way forward. If I'm using a middle to a long iron, I'm going to have it just a touch back between the two positions. But here I'm hitting a short iron. I've got a tee laid down. Okay, I've got this club, which is aimed parallel to my target. This club here is at right angles, and now all I'm going to make sure here is that this club is in the center of my stance, because I want the ball with a short iron in the middle of my feet. So the distance between the left foot and the center and the right foot and the center are exactly the same. Now, by lining these 6 balls up in a row, all I've got to do is I hit the first one, I then shuffle my way up, move to the second one, because obviously there's going to be a divot there. So from a time standpoint, instead of having to move a ball over and move these clubs all out of the way, at least I've got 6 balls which I can just get my ball position right. You know, what we feel we do in a golf swing and what we actually do are 2 different things. So very important to get the ball's position, especially if you're a slicer, you want to get that ball more back in your stance. So check your position with this little exercise. It's a fun way of doing it, and you only have to do it a few times, and before you know it, you'll have a consistent ball position. The beauty of analyzing your swing with video is that you can actually see what's taking place. A lot of times we just sense or feel what's taking place, and it could be totally wrong. But with ball position, it is important to get a consistent spot. Now, here's a little drill that you can get the ball positioned consistently every time. So with the driver, we want the ball forward in our stance, if you can remember that. with the short irons in the middle of our stance and with the mid to longer irons somewhere between those 2 points. Now, the way I like golfers to go about doing it is to set up, put the club face behind the ball like so, get your feet absolutely together so the ball is opposite the little gap between both feet, and then simply move your left foot to determine where the ball should be positioned. So you see, using your left foot as a guide, now, if I just move my left foot a little, I'm going to have that ball just inside my left heel. Now I'm going to move my right foot to the right, a fairly wide stance for a long club. And now I'm in the correct position as far as ball location is concerned. If I did have a short iron, I'd move my left foot to the left, my right foot to the right, so to pretty much get the ball in the middle of my stance, but I'm using my left foot as the guide foot. So remember, put the club face down behind the ball, move your left foot first, determine where the ball should be positioned, move your right foot to the right, get the correct width of stance, good balance, and now you're ready to go. You won't have to worry about that ball position again. Standing too far from the ball or too close to the ball can create problems. We see a lot of golfers who set up to the ball where their arms are really reaching. They're a long way from it, their upper body is bent over, and really that's going to affect their golf swing tremendously. Conversely, we see players who really they stand too close to the ball, and this creates havoc as far as being able to move correctly. So getting the right distance from the ball is very, very important. The question I get asked a lot is, how do I know if I'm too far from the ball or too close to the ball? Well, here's a simple way to test that. What I'd like you to do in setting up to it is to sense that your upper arms or your triceps are just very, very lightly resting on your chest. If you sense they're not resting at all on your chest, there's no connection whatsoever, then you're too far from it. If, on the other hand, you feel like your elbows are almost on your rib cage, then you're way too close to the ball. So just set up to it in such a way that, hey, just your upper arms, okay, your triceps are barely on your pectoral muscles. This gives you a link between the arms and the body, because it's very important in a swing that the arms connect up with the body, and that will give you the rough idea of where you should be. Now, some of it's determined by one's build. Okay, I've got long arms, so I can be a little further from the ball than, say, some play with short arms. But yet, if you use that test, just sense, just move your arms, just feel it, just have an awareness of your upper arms just lightly resting on your chest. And then, as long as your hands are comfortably hanging beneath your chin in that general area, you can be roughly certain that you're in the right position. So some players do stand a little further, even good players, and some players do stand a little closer, but I like to use that as a general rule of thumb. So remember, upper arms resting gently on the chest, and that's a good little test to see if you're the right distance from the ball.